Do you suffer from stress, anxiety, or depression? Do you find it hard to focus or to contain your emotions? Any of these things can take you down. So, what then are your personal health practices? If you don't yet have an integral or holistic wellness practice, you're in the right place. Podcast host Susan Axelrod, the confidence coach, has been practicing holistic wellness for 25 years. Along the way, Qigong and Tai Chi found her. After tiptoeing in, she dove into a committed practice and became a teacher and integral wellness consultant. She'll tell you Qigong and Tai Chi changed her life. In this podcast, she interviews practitioners, inviting them to share their stories about how these practices changed their lives too. Go grab your journal. At the top of a clean page, write down, "I want to feel better." Then take a breath and tune in to see if Qigong and Tai Chi can help. Hello, friends. Welcome to this episode of How Qigong and Tai Chi Changed My Life. Today, it's going to be amazing. We have a very special treat with a very special guest, Josie Weaver. Josie is going to be talking about how Qigong can help in chronic pain. So, full reveal, we already had an entire podcast conversation in what we call the green room in the meeting before this podcast conversation. So, honestly, I can't wait to get started. I'm going to just share Josie's bio with you. Josie Weaver is a dedicated teacher of mind-body practice with multiple certifications in Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, and bodywork. She teaches mind-body arts in medical settings and leads public classes in Spanish and English in the San Francisco Bay Area and online. Josie is past president of the Healer Within Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to mind-body education and training, and has served on the board of the Qigong Institute. Josie invites you to pursue your desire for healing and optimal health as your unique and powerful road to growth and transformation in all areas of life. Hello again, my friend.
Hello, Susan. Hello, everyone.
Josie, this topic is so important, and I might say it's timely now, but honestly, it's probably always been timely. The idea of chronic pain in your physical body and what can I really do about it? I could go to a doctor, I can take medication, all that is good, all that is fine. But you and I both know that there's much, much more that we can do. So, Josie, you are trained in something called Empowered Relief, which is a 2-hour pain skills class, the research about which shows long-term efficacy. So I really want to get started in this. Let's go. Let's talk about what people can do for themselves for their chronic pain.
Oh, yes, Susan. It's like a rich topic in terms of just science information that's really been coming through in the last, I'd say, 15 years, and then the topic of pain science, also pain medicine, just getting informed by that science has really been the thing that's happened over the last few years. And this little 2-hour pain skills class was created by Stanford University. Pain scientists, especially the primary scientist there was Dr. Beth Darnell. And she herself actually suffered from chronic pain I think it was back pain when she was a young person in college. And she had this experience of nobody knew what was going on. It was this like, we don't know how it happened. And, don't worry your pretty little head about it. And it might be just all in your head. And like, right. That story is shocking to me in the sense of that can still happen in
It
this day
surely
and
can.
age.
You hear
Okay.
about it all the time.
Right.
Yep.
Medical gaslighting, that whole idea. Right. And then what happens to the person in pain is like, well, no recourse, right? No recourse. Right. And so this is what can happen is now pain interferes with your quality of life. And this is the thing that it has to have a solution, because 1 in 5 people, right, 20% of Americans, and just looking at the United States, suffer from some form of chronic pain, which is defined as a pain that lasts 6 months or more. Okay, so think about it. We've all had some, oh, you know what? I had a shoulder that was weird for a year or whatever, whatever. We all have a little, like, a recognition, a moment that way. But sometimes what happens in nervous systems, right? This is a very important concept, is that pain signal, okay, the pain syndrome, the pain experience persists, right? And this persists. And so this is the class that I told you about, Empowered Relief, is that explanation of why that is. You get a little bit of pain science, just enough to help you understand how things are going to help, right? And the thing is, pain is very complicated, but one thing that all pain has in common, and if you do a Google for pain, right, types of pain, you'll get at least 7 kinds of pain, right? So you get like migraine, you'll get musculoskeletal pain, you'll get, neuropathic pain. I'm holding my belly here. You're going to get, intestinal pain, that's all different. Facial pain also has like its own little discipline, but all pain happens in the central nervous system. So really, you think about, it's a brain experience and a nervous system. So it's a whole body experience. And so I take a breath here, because that means in our conversation, pain is a mind-body experience, right? Okay, so you're going to have a physical thing happening in the body, right? So the signals, the wound, the injury, whatever it is. But then you're also going to have the mindset about it. It's going to affect your mind. It's going to give you pain-related thoughts. And this is a skill that we teach in Empowered Relief of, wow, what is that about, right? And it's almost like you could see what people have in their mind when they have pain, right? So we think it's going to get worse. We feel victimized in some level, right? We ruminate. Why is this happening, right? And we complain. We're like, oh, quality of life. I can't even have a thought. So we want to appreciate this nuanced idea of pain, that's not just this physical experience, but your mind is also very much involved. And I see you nodding your head and going, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
this is. Right?
Yes.
That's what
Yes,
this
times
is.
a million, because I do so much of my coaching, my confidence coaching work. I mean, I do mindset transfer. Stems from my own experience of my mind, my thoughts perseverating in my mind, and my work to get control of my mind. I am 100% on board with what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. So it's important here, I think, to pause a little bit, okay, and say, we're not saying that pain is all in your mind, right?
No,
We
of
just said,
course not.
no,
You said the physical. I have it right
it's
here.
a
Yeah.
mind-body experience.
Right.
And, wow, I really feel bad for anybody who experiences pain. But also, I want to invite, and this is an important thing that happens in Empowered Relief classes. That's why we say it's empowered, right? Is a healthy notion of pain. Right now, what we have in society is like, ooh, pain, you're not supposed to be in pain. That's not right. You're supposed to get rid of that as soon as possible, right? And like, whoa, that's actually not a good thing at all. In fact, there is a congenital disease, right? It's genetic, that can happen where people don't feel pain. It was a very rare disease that was discovered in the 1930s. Okay, 1930s. Pain scientists can't remember the name, but if you look up congenital uh, pain, right, or insensitivity to pain, CIP, and then there's an A in there for anhidrosis. So congenital insensitivity to pain and anhidrosis. What that means, you can't feel pain. These people can't feel pain. Anhidrosis means they can't sweat. Okay, so this is like real basic things that you and I we don't think about that. But it tells you a little bit about what pain is, because these people don't live very long. Okay, so pain is that signal that says, hey, you need to do something. Okay, you need to do something. But we want to think about it this way. It's the signal, right? It's the alarm system that says, hey, you got to do something. It's not necessarily the pain itself. Does that make sense? Or the injury. Okay, so it tells you something's happening.
It's informing you.
It's informing you, but it's not
Informing
telling
you.
you the nature of what's happening. That's why pain is so tricky. Okay. And especially in a chronic pain situation, it's like the alarm system that tells you something's wrong, it doesn't shut off. So you can imagine that would just like, oh man, just totally just interfere with your quality of life. Okay. So aha, this is where our mind body practice really comes into play because we start to see how is it that this is going on in the first place. Okay. We start to observe ourselves, right? And this is a very interesting thing because those pain thoughts that I told you about, they have a pattern. And in fact, there's a questionnaire that's used by a lot of pain investigations and research that's standard, right? Standard. And so there, if people have a high score on this pain questionnaire, right? Where they're expecting pain to get worse, they're, feeling victimized, they're ruminating, they're, anxious, they're feeling helpless. The higher the score, the more it's possible that pain will persist. Okay. Wild, right?
Oh,
This has been, tabulated. This has been,
right.
in
Oh,
science. Yeah. So, that there's information, there's evidence that that happens. And so empowered relief becomes this way of like, let's identify the minimum that you have to do. Okay. And this it's kind of a shortcut because empowered relief compares to cognitive behavioral therapy. And the cognitive, right, means mind, right? Cognition becomes something that can be something that you can influence, you can do that's going to affect pain. So, this is like a lot of work, but you could start to notice your pain uh, patterns, right? What do you think of? Where do you go when you have pain, when you feel that discomfort? Now it's a very real thing that happens, and it's going to affect people's lives, right? I mean, the economy of the United States is totally affected by people not getting to work, not being able to work in pain, right? So it is debilitating. But anything that we can do to start to change that is going to be valuable. And this is where empowered relief is very valuable. It's been has had grants, to by the NIH, $1 million grant, millions and millions of dollars to research this little 2-hour class, right?
wow.
And yes, and then it comes through. There's evidence that it shows people even 6 months after taking this little 2-hour class that there's benefits in terms of even a pain sensation or that pain experience being so changed that there's even less pain. Okay, because it's so much about perception and so much about experience. So we want to give people that sense of how can you influence that and then have the actual result. Are you feel are you getting better? Is your life different, really? And that's we want to give that in that class. So in that class, in Empowered Relief, we give you those tools, right? And underneath it all, we say it's mind body practice. Okay, mind body practice. So you're bringing the mind, your thoughts into the perception and that experience of the body. And this is going to affect the the nervous system. It's going to affect the pain experience, right? So this is what starts to happen, and this is very important. That this is what we start to make people aware that oh wow, they already do this, right?
Yeah, I have more experience through my work, through my personal experience, and through my work as a coach of how this impacts depression, anxiety, worries about how much when I call it coming into consciousness, becoming
Mhm,
consciously aware, you're calling it mind,
mhm,
mindful. You said the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, the cognitive is the mind. When you said, I wrote it down, there are the pain, the questions, the more that you are victim, you ruminate, you're anxious, the higher your pain score on those questions, the more likely it is to persist. And so that we can come into control of our minds. This is what Qigong is all about. And every mind body practice where you mindfully come into your presence in charge of yourself through the breath, with the breath, and which activates the nervous system, brings your nervous system into balance, into control. So I have more experience. This is why I'm so interested in this. I'm so glad that we're talking about this connected to physical pain. Chronic pain, I didn't actually know the definition, lasts 6 months or more. That means you have chronic pain.
That's right. And,
And
like anybody could have chronic pain. And so, this is a very important concept here to really take away, is that anybody could have it. And the word that I like to use with students and with myself is innocent. Having chronic pain is innocent. We think we did something wrong, or something is terribly wrong. And, there is something that needs adjusting, that absolutely, you need to change something. That's our signal. But you're not wrong, right? This can happen to anybody, really. Even people who know about it, right?
right.
Like Dr. Darnell, studying in school, or, myself experiencing episodes of chronic pain. And here I'm teaching people now for more than 10 years, and still susceptible, absolutely, because this is underneath it all, right? Also happening on this neurological level. And so what's happened in the research as well about these things is, now we have evidence, we have pictures, right, of people's brains when they have chronic pain. And they're different. The brains of people in chronic pain are different from people who don't have chronic pain. And how so? Okay, so some regions tend to be a little smaller. They tend to kind of like shrink a little bit. Whoa, right? Okay, so this is like, wow, this is something that can very physically be measured. Okay, and then the good news is that people who do empowered relief, people who do cognitive behavioral therapy, those two things are the things that got studied here, do change their brains, right? They do get nourished, right? They get that brain nourishment. The neurons are there. And, my theory, and it's not exactly substantiated here, is that what's happening is we are improving the communication systems of the body. I'm going to use my hands here to show
Yeah.
brain going down to the rest of the body, because your brain is your body, and then body coming back up to the brain. And so you really are improving that communication system.
Also, like polishing the pearl in
That's
in
right.
Tai
You're
Chi.
doing this thing. Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, those gestures are also going to be cognitive inputs, right? And this is where mind body practice starts to make you, oh, okay, I'm going to invite these thoughts to happen. Peter Wayne, the researcher of Tai Chi and Qigong, says, a lot of times what we're doing in Tai Chi and Qigong mind body practice is putting our body in these empowered positions, right? That it start to affect what we think. We're going to put our arms up. This is victory, right? We're like, hey, right? We do this, right? So if you put yourself there, right? Put your body there. Even if it hurts, right? It's like, maybe I can't go that high. Maybe I'm here, but I'm going to invite that thought form to happen. And then that thought form starts to have this invisible but very present effect on your nervous system. And then that's what's going to change your nervous system, right? So this is where we say empowered relief changes the brain, trains it away from pain, right? We change the track, go look at something else. So important to train the attention. That's really what we're doing in these practices that benefit people with chronic pain.
Again, as a confidence coach, I teach confidence speaking. I call it confidence speaking, public speaking. And I literally, not kidding, tell people to go into that victory stance that you just did. You indicated, Dr. Wang says, putting the body in empowered positions. What's so intriguing about all of this is I'm listening, I'm learning, and I just want to say thank you for this class today and applying it in the way that has evolved for my personal life and my work. But I'm very intrigued about how you are 100% applying this to the physical body, the physical pain. As you know, Josie, I got a bout of sciatica. I had it 15 years ago, never again until suddenly last year. And I was out of commission for 3 solid weeks, followed by 8 weeks of physical therapy. And thank God I'm fine today, but I know what pain feels like.
Oh, yeah.
I do know it. It didn't become chronic pain, but like you said, you got aches and pains in your body, especially as we get older. I love, I'm intrigued, I'm excited. I completely appreciate what you're literally teaching us. I'm on pages of my notes, what you're teaching us about how the mind body experience, the mind body practice can help support reducing the pain output from the physical pain.
Yes. And you really think about think about it yourself, right? And your complexity, right? You're a system, right? Your nervous system. We tend to think about our systems, right? Separately, right? They're all like, I go to the heart doctor to look at my cardiology. I go to the neurologist to look at the nerves. I go to the nutritionist to look at nutrition. So but that's going to fragment you, right? If you start thinking that they're all together and you start thinking that they influence each other, right? You start to say, oh, I could start to do something different, and that's that little aha, right? That little aha of like, okay, how am I gonna take care of this now? And it's that consciousness, right? So like you said, I love that, becoming conscious, right? That's a big part of this, and recognizing, oh, whoa, I did have chronic pain, or oh my gosh, I do have chronic pain. I have a student who refuses to admit, right, that she deals with, her own sciatica flares that come and go because they're not always there. So she says it's not chronic, but she's been dealing with it for years.
Yeah.
So like, but that's actually a healthy attitude to think, that's not me. What can happen when we have chronic pain is like, oh, I better watch it because my sciatica might flare up. Ooh, I'm not going to go out there anymore. I'm not going to do this.
We become identified with it.
That's right. And then your world starts to shrink.
Shrink, right.
Right. Very, very important to see, like, well, is this happening for you? But also have compassion for that, because it's no fun to have pain. And I still say, you know what, even though it's a natural thing, it's a mind body experience and all that. Wow, that is real suffering. That is real suffering. And, it's going to change everything. Could even wreck relationships, So just like, oh, let's really have that compassion, that humility when it comes to dealing with these things. But there are some solutions, right? So this is really, really helpful, right? So the student who has this condition is not going to think of herself as a chronic pain sufferer, but then has this great motivation to do her Qigong, her Tai Chi, and to do her breath work, to notice her mind, and then to say all these things I'm doing for my well-being, which includes reducing pain, right? So this is this moment to relax and say, yes, you can influence that. And that's what happens to people who take this class. They start to get a little taste that they can influence that. And then, of course, that little taste is going to get encoded in the brain and the nervous system. And then it builds on itself. And you and I talk about this all the time with mind body practice, that you have to repeat. You have to repeat, right? This is, your brain loves repetition. It loves rhythm. But sometimes, you're going to encounter your pain again because those pathways, those memories are still there.
Mm.
Right. And it's like, oh, me too. I've had my episodes, but then I know what to do. I was like, oh, okay, I need to change a few things, right? I need to change a few things. And
I mean, Josie,
yeah,
my dear BFF, Debbie, does have chronic pain from a neck, and she's like a total hero because she does all of these things. Like, I've watched her. I don't know what the pain feels like, but I've watched her be in this positive mindset. And so what? So you do those things, you put the wrap on your neck, or you also do the things. It's not like you're saying not to do things, maybe take medication or whatever.
That's right.
But to support yourself. Marabella Armstrong in her podcast episode talked about feeling nauseous when she had to take an MRI and they wanted to give her medication. And she said, oh, no, I got this. I even wrote about this myself. I posted it recently in my own email. Like, I had a headache recently. I came to consciousness. I did my breath work. I did some self-massage, as we do, in Qigong, and I made a choice.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to taking aspirin. It's no problem. It's just that I had these tools, and in very short order, I felt better.
Yes, and
This
that's a
works, Josie.
well, it's a very important concept too, because we think that, oh, once you do mind body practice, you have this beautiful, peaceful life. But life isn't like that, right? Life's gonna like, challenge you and throw you into the unknown and take you to places where you don't feel sure of yourself. And of course, that's what's going to animate or reanimate pain a lot of times, right? So this is where, if we can have that concept, and I want to call it out because it's really important. This idea you spoke to, that things can change,
Mm,
right? That things can, it's so simple, right? You can change, the things can change. They're not going to change, on their own. They might change on their own. But what if you did something that would just change things right now? It's like, well, I'm hurting, but I'm going to just move my arms like this. Or I'm hurting, but I'm going to sway and I'm going to, sing. I'm going to, whatever it is that you're just going to, like you said, really key word, decision. You make a decision at that point where you go, okay, this is my plan for the next hour. Right? Here's my plan for the next 10 seconds,
right.
while I experience this excruciation, this pain. But
I
I'm not
mean,
going to, go into it and go, oh, why? And blah,
no, I
whoa,
when I
that's the
had
pain
this
experience.
when this sciatica hit me, it hit me in one night, and I made a decision. I am normal, I am human,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
because of these practices, because of what I know, because of my decades of building my personal commitment to internal strength and wellness, and wanting to and choosing to live in more well-being than whatever the opposite of bad being, right? Choosing these practices in the middle of the night, I was in bed and I was in pain, and I forced myself to get up and walk around my little room, just to, because I knew that when I moved, it felt better than laying in bed for 8 hours at night. And I did. I laid there. It was hard. I was in very bad pain, but I got myself out of bed using what you're talking about, the impetus of the mind, Josie. I'm like so excited about this
Yeah, I'm
empowered
very
release
excited
course.
about that. Yeah, totally excited about that because, what you do matters. And then, you can start to really find the very deep, ordinary, grounded motivation to practice. It's going to change things. You can really expect that, and this is, one of my favorite books, right? Dr. Roger Yanka, The Healing Promise of Chi, right? There's a
Yeah.
promise there. If you hang in there, if you stick with it, you can see that what happens after that dark night, the sun starts to come up mysteriously, and you go, oh, different day.
It's a total mindset revolution. It really truly is. It's a evolution,
Yes.
evolving mindset. And it is a revolution in your life to live in a new way of being. And I get it, Josie. It's hard. I'm not here to say that people haven't suffered, and you don't know my struggles. I don't. I
Mm,
don't.
yeah.
I don't know the struggles. I simply am here to show a practice that has worked for me and countless others. It's the whole purpose of this entire podcast series. And it does definitely. I looked up while you were talking. I looked up to remind myself the definition of interoception. I
Yes.
had never heard earlier. I don't remember if we were on screen or off screen. We talked about the scientific terms,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
how
Yes.
knowing science gives you something to hold on to, something real, something
Yes.
actual to hold on to.
Yeah, well, also we got to remember that science is done by a community, right? So it's when you have a scientific term, it means that lots of people are talking about it, and suddenly bringing awareness to it, bringing consciousness to it in this like communal level. So it's almost like everybody all at once thinking about this one word. The word you chose here was interoception. Is thinking about that phenomenon that we all have experienced, but we've never named. We've never named it. And so now we could say, oh, that happens for you too. And it turns out, right, interoception, really quick definition, is that ability, right, for your mind, for your awareness, right, to be directed, right, to physical and physiological events and experiences in your body. So we all experience interoception when we can feel the butterflies in our stomach when we're nervous, or we can feel hungry, or we can feel our skin crawling, or itching, that sort of thing. That's so ordinary, we could miss it. But it turns out that that's a mind body experience too, right? So you're perceiving the body simultaneously while you are aware of those thoughts in the mind about the body. So it's like a really important skill. But what can happen in pain, right, is that those signals, right, get so confused, get so tangled up. I was trying to remember the researcher, Wolfgang Mehling in the University of San Francisco, right, talks about how the pain experience itself is this big tangle of neural signals in the body. And I do this thing with my hands to do head and neck and body. It's all confused.
Well, even
So
when you do this, this is what pain feels like,
this is the big tangle, and it's like
exactly.
a mess, it's chaos, it's like really messing with my life. I just want to get back to just what I was doing, right? And so
Yeah.
you have to kind of have that patience to, as Lao Tzu said, can we have that patience for the lake to become clear? And I'm like letting my hands come down slowly, gently, letting the that agitation of the lake, the sediment goes down to the bottom. And it just takes a little time.
Mm.
And then suddenly the lake is clear.
It's such a beautiful analogy of the
Mhm.
lake is clear. And also in Qigong, one of the first things I learned is flowing motion,
Oh,
the raising of the hands and
that's
the
so
lowering of the hands. And it's slow. I've said this on this podcast series before. To tell you the truth, it was an irritant for me.
totally.
It
Yes.
was an irritant, and I got irritated in the training programs. Like, what is this? What are we doing? Like
Yes.
I'm not my old former type A, but it was an irritant until you use, for example, the analogy of letting the sediment flow to the bottom of the lake, and the clearing of the lake. So even now I'm taking my hands, I've
Mhm.
raised them up, and I'm bringing them down slowly. And you
Mhm.
can bring in this feeling of this calming, settling with your breath supporting the body movement. So, oh,
Yeah,
this
and
is,
it's a beautiful qigong, and I want to call attention to the fact that when we're stressed, when we're in that, and I consider pain as like a stress experience, really, just like it's almost physiologically the same thing. Um, when we're stressed, we can't appreciate these things, right? So like we need these things, but it could be like, oh man, this is irritating, or I'm feeling nausea when I do this, right? So it's just that moment of paying attention. Suddenly coming to consciousness could be a little bit rude, a little bit intense for some people. So this is where, if we can, wow, bring that metaphor in, bring the analogy in, and then now we're inviting the mind to participate in that. Right now we're, oh, okay, let's bring it all in together. And even 10 seconds of that, right, done in earnest, right, can start to shift, that those feelings of revulsion or stress when it comes to quieting down. Because we're just seeing
oh,
what's there. We're just seeing what's there, right? Like,
oh yeah.
oh,
Do
okay, this
you,
is
in your classes, in your work, you said you offered these classes at least 4 times a year. Do you experience people crying?
oh,
Yeah, that's what came up
yeah.
for me just
No,
now,
people
like
can cry.
spontaneous.
Yeah, yeah. People can cry and kind of have that recognition, right? It's just like when they see, have this moment, okay, and then seen it in their faces, and live in person, Zoom. Sometimes is like, oh, my life has to change,
Mm,
and just kind of go, oh, and you just go, wow, this is so ordinary. But what can happen when we're in pain is that we feel like we can't change, right? We feel like, oh, pain's going to happen again. Oh, right. There's no change, right? So we can feel very defeated. But then we
mm,
go, oh, wait, my life has changed, and I think I know how. Oh my goodness, right? So it could be like a little bit daunting, right? But then it's also a very powerful moment, to become cognizant, to become aware. It's very, very powerful, right? It's like, yeah, you can be here, you can do this, and then that, like, the confidence starts to come out of the ground like a beautiful plant growing in the sun.
Yeah, I have. I'm going to do another episode with my dear friend Nadine Searle, the Calm Yourself coach. She's also a certified grief coach, and we're going to be talking about how qigong can support extended grief. And but it came up for me energetically. Now I could feel in the pain. Even sitting here, I realize, we're talking about this. This is so crazy. It's so fantastic. I have an occasional pain in my back or, my knee when I'm training or
Mhm,
whatever.
mhm.
And then you just said, this is where I think we're going to end this conversation because this is the end game when I say to myself, my life has to change, AKA, I want to change my life.
Mm, mm.
And that's really hard when you're in pain. Fibromyalgia is real, right?
Mhm,
Talk
mhm.
about medical gaslighting and so on. Or my dear one here, friend suffers from bursitis, ongoing chronic pain. Um, and so, but I guess in the end, the the title empowered relief is I want to change my life. Does that say it for you, Josie?
Oh God, yes. I mean, to really have that courage to say, I want, because I think what can happen if we're in pain, we can become disempowered and it's like, well, I can't want anything. I can't get anything. So, it's like, wow, everything starts shrinking. Everything starts to want to disappear almost, and so to really flip that and go, nope, nope, I can still have this life, and with the body I have, with the mind I have, I'm going to choose to live, darn it.
That's what my
And
friend Debbie has done. And also, if you're not careful, my sister Laura will come over. And as she did with me, she was here with me kicking my ass, to do what I needed to do to rest and, be well and do what I needed to do. And eventually, we have an opportunity if we come into our mind focus and say, I want to change my life to kind of, rise back up through it. Josie, I want to thank you so much. This is really so good. I'm very excited. I'll be putting the links to your website. I get your emails. I read them. A lot of people
oh,
put out
thank you.
emails and, but yours is one of the ones I signed up for. I read, I strongly encourage others to. They're not that long. They're brief, they're powerful, and they're empowering. Also, because you do so many different kinds of things, it's helpful to learn. And also, I'm like, oh, what's Josie doing now? So, thanks for taking the time to do that as well. And I want to say thank you. And I'm already looking forward to whatever our next conversation is going to be.
Oh, me too. And thank you for this series, Susan. It's been amazing to just watch you synthesizing everything and make this offering with love and clarity to the community. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I'll look forward. I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Bye now.